Hello and welcome back to episode 8 of Purple and Gold Zone. I'm your host, Montana. Welcome back, or if this is your first time joining us, welcome. As always, all things Lakers, all the time, past, present, future. We've got it all. Really focusing on a lot of the present situations currently. I do want to let you guys know that we are going to have an all-star episode where we talk about the best Lakers all-star performances in history. We talk about if a certain player was snubbed, and we're just going to have some all-star conversation. So next episode will be very all-star heavy. We will not touch on that today, probably, but we will do one more episode at least before the all-star break, and that's when we'll talk a lot about all-star. So for today, we have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a jam-packed episode. I'm really excited to bring you guys this show. This might be the episode where we eclipse our 45-minute to 50-minute mark, but I'm going to try to keep it there. But again, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get right into it. So, starting with a high point, starting with that good, when I said good, bad, and ugly, well, this is the good right here. This is the really good. If you remember back in November, the last time we faced the Pacers, then you have had some nightmares about that because that was a very similar game. Very similar in the fact that it was very close all the way throughout, but the biggest difference was the Lakers looked terrible in the fourth and ended up losing, I believe it was 115 to 116 off of really poor decisions on a last drive on defense. They were not lined up correctly. I disagreed with who was lined up on who. I thought they should have had Westbrook in. Westbrook wasn't in. It was not a very well thought out defensive strategy. And the Pacers are a really quick team that will put points up on you really quick. And we saw that this whole game. The Lakers didn't have a lead until the fourth. The Lakers didn't have a lead until the last 2 minutes of the game. I can't wrap that around my head. The fact that we still won this game, on one hand, it's like, okay, great. The Lakers can finally come back and stay in games even if they haven't had a lead. But then I'm like, well, it's the Pacers. And again, no disrespect to the Pacers because the Pacers have a squad. I've clowned on them a little bit because one of my buddies is a Pacers fan, and I'm not sure if he even watches the show, but if he ever does, I want to give him a little something to laugh about. So I don't have anything against the Pacers. They're really in a similar spot as the Lakers. Now they're one game behind us with wins, but they're 24 and 29. They're currently sitting 11th in the East. But this is a team that everybody thought was going to just bomb and just gonna go for those big draft picks. I mean, we totally thought, I'm gonna be honest. I thought they were not going to have the success they had. I thought they were tanking. Tanking is not something that is loved or even like it's not something that is wanted in the NBA at any level. Commissioner, fans, like tanking is not something that is anyone ever really wants to see, but it does happen. They're not tanking. I mean, they're in the play-in picture almost. They're right behind the Bulls for that play-in spot. So the Pacers are a squad. But do you really think we could not have a lead in the fourth, except in the fourth, against a team like the Celtics or the Bucks or the 76ers or the Nuggets or the Grizzlies or even the Kings, even the Sacramento Queens, who are third in the West? We could not have a lead until the fourth and then win, especially the last 2 minutes. I don't see the Lakers being able to do that. So this was a great win. This was a clutch win, but we are still a little bit off of where we need to be because yeah, we pulled it off against a team like the Pacers, who are a solid squad. Again, no hate, no disrespect. They are a solid squad that I do think we will see in at least the play-in. But it's the Los Angeles freaking Lakers. And we have Anthony Davis and we have LeBron. And it's just something that we shouldn't see. Which, speaking of Anthony Davis, he was amazing last night. I mean, he looked like himself, and it was exciting. And I will also say he looked like he is being a little more careful with certain moves and certain shots he's done that he's fallen or whatever before, because I didn't see some of that I've seen. I think he's trying to play it a lot safer, which is what you need to do if you're him at this moment. So, he came in clutch, and he is the absolute difference maker in that end for us. He was the reason we won that game, and that's who he is. So shout out to him, but also shout out to Hachimura, and also I got to shout out to Thomas Bryant because they both brought in a pretty solid amount of boards as well. The biggest difference the Lakers had last night, the real defining factor to me, was the rebounds. The Lakers out-rebounded the Pacers 51-46, and they out-rebounded them offensively 13-6. I mean, offensive rebounds, the Lakers were in it which is good because they still had a really unsuccessful night from three. 27.3% from three to the Pacers 39. The Pacers were absolutely dominating us in the three. We were 6 for 22, and that's where a lot of those offensive rebounds came from, but it doesn't matter. We still got them. We were still getting the boards, and Hachimura and Bryant and Davis were solely responsible. Yeah, you know what? Dennis Schroeder had 6 rebounds. LeBron had 7. But when we're talking about the guys that were down in the paint getting those missed bricks, it was Hachimura, it was Davis, and it was also Thomas Bryant. So that was big. Those guys came in clutch. I think our big men position finally getting a little more depth and a little more youth has really shown that it's made a difference. So that was big. Now, another thing about the game before we look at individual performances a little bit more is looking at that third. I have beaten this point so many times this season, and I have been all on it, and I'll probably be all on it no matter where we end up. We have choked and crashed and burned in the third consistently this season. And last season, that was the story the whole season. I mean, last season, that's why we were as bad as we were, is that's all we were doing was crashing and burning in the second half. But this season, we saw that trend in the beginning, and we still see that trend. We're not the most consistent team coming out of the gates for the second half, but it's a lot better. And we had 30 points to their 29, which was huge. That's big. I mean, that just proves that was the defining factor. We came out in the third. We had gotten outscored 24-32 in the second, and we came out in the third ready to hit. And we were down, 15 plus at a time. The Lakers had to fight their way back in this game, and the fact that we're seeing that fight, and we're seeing that fight be successful, is big. So this was a great game, but let's take a look at some individual performances really quick to see who was putting up the numbers and who was not. So obviously I've kind of already gone into a couple of players' rebound stats, but looking at the entirety of the game, Anthony Davis had himself a great performance. I mean, I'm going to be honest, Anthony Davis, this was super solid. This was by far his best performance since coming back. He had 31 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. Both of those actually being really important blocks. The thing about Anthony Davis, the thing that I like the most about him defensively is he's not getting the empty stat blocks in the middle of the game. He gets the ones that matter, and that's the biggest thing the Lakers have been missing when he hasn't been playing, is a player that can do that, because they've not really had that other piece that can do that. So Anthony Davis being back, getting that clutch block, showing up and showing out, putting some really nice free throws in late. Of course he was 0 for 3 from 3, but the Lakers are just a bad 3-point team, and that's just been, I mean, that's not news. That's been the case. Even the year they won the championship, they weren't the greatest 3-point team. So, honestly, they've been that team. So, it's not a surprise, but he played great. He had a great performance. And then Dennis Schroeder has also been playing really good ball, really consistent ball. He's kind of hot and cold, but way less hot and cold than a player like Magic Man. So, he was 12 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1 steal. Really solid stats. I mean, he's definitely a spark plug. He's a really big piece for the Lakers. And the thing I like most about him, especially when I remember from watching him live when he was on the Lakers the first time, this is Houston. This is James Harden's last game as a Rocket I got to see. Super ironic. I had no idea that was what was going to happen. But right when I got back from Houston, I got the ESPN notification that he was a Net. It was crazy. I'd just seen him play less than 24 hours ago. But anyways, what I liked about Dennis Schroeder, especially seeing him live, I mean, of course you can see it on the TV, but seeing it live is just how quick he is. He is so quick, and he will get to the hoop so quick. He will drive for his height. He will get up and he will get to the hoop, and he'll usually make that. I mean, he's really hard to block. His shot is super quick. He gets up, he gets under. I mean, he is a really shifty player, and he's a spark plug. So seeing him put up 12 points and 12 big points as well as those other stats is great. And then we look at LeBron James. He's been having himself a great season. Oh my goodness, he's been having himself an iconic, historic season. Of course, he's donning that scoring record. We'll talk about that later. But he had 26 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He was 2 for 5 from 3. He hit a couple decent shots. But again, overall, he needs to stop shooting. This whole team, for the most part, needs to stop shooting. It's not working. But he had a good game. He put up some big points, obviously. I mean, just doing what LeBron does. And then Rui Hachimura had himself a game. He had 7 points, 9 rebounds, and 1 steal. Again, this is definitely his smallest best performance as a Laker. He had 19 points against the Knicks and 16 against the Nets. But when we look at his rebound numbers, it actually tied his last game against the Knicks, and he had more steals than he's had as a Laker. So his stat line evens itself out. You know, he scored less, but he put up other stats, and it was still really effective. Looking at Patrick Beverley, I will say this. Patrick Beverley had his best game as a Laker this whole season because he hit a really clutch three, and he had 7 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. That is a Patrick Beverley stat line that I can get behind. That is a Patrick Beverley stat line that I'm like, this is why we have him. This is the whole reason we have him. Those little moments where he makes a big difference. Those little moments that add up. And, well, that 3 he made was a big moment. That 3 he made was a huge one. It was in the last 3 minutes, I believe, and it was a big 3, and it gave the Lakers life. And so I've dogged on him a couple of times, and I still am not super sold on him being on the team because this is his best performance he's had, in my opinion, for the Lakers all season. And I don't really like the fact that this is his best performance. Like, yeah, it's great, it's fine, but we need more than that. So Patrick Beverley, in his defense, and to his credit, had himself a really solid game, but still, it's not enough for me to look at him as a piece that I think we should keep long term. And then, of course, Russell Westbrook, 10 points, 10 assists, 3 rebounds. I mean, great performance. Super solid, double-double, looked great. 0 for 5 from 3. Come on, bro. Come on, man. Westbrook, don't get yourself there again. No. In all honesty, the Westbrook calls were ridiculous. I didn't like them, but I mean, I was also one of the ones saying them, so I can't say too much. But come on, man. Don't turn back into Westbrook. Do what you're doing because what you're doing is good. And then Troy Brown Jr., 2 points, 2 points, 1 assist, 3 rebounds, got himself 2 steals, so not really just running around getting his laps in because he did have 2 pretty big steals, so congratulations to Troy Brown Jr. for once again doing something at least. And then we got Lonnie Walker, who has been out and about and has been injured, but he's back, and he had himself a super cold game, a Magic Man type of game. We saw him, but now we don't see him, unfortunately. 6 points and 1 rebound. Yeah, that's all I have to say about him. Not much else there. And then looking at Thomas Bryant, finally, Thomas Bryant was one of the players that had the biggest impacts again because he had 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 block, and that block was a really solid block. So as a whole, I think we are seeing these players start to mesh and build up a little bit more and kind of be more of an all-around team. It's definitely not just LeBron, but it's also not just AD. These players are really contributing. Westbrook had himself a good game. Hachimura had himself a good game. Beverly had himself a good game. Schroeder had himself a good game. Thomas Bryant had himself a good game. All of them had themselves a really good game. The one player I would say did not have a great game is Lonnie Walker. That's the only player, and the only reason that I'm saying Troy Brown did is because he had some pretty solid steals, but Lonnie Walker did not have himself a very good game. But everyone else on the roster, in my opinion, did what we brought them here to do. So it was a solid win. It was a great performance, and honestly, I'm feeling pretty good. But speaking of how we are looking, the big question has been, can we get to 500 before All-Star break? Let's get into that next. So I'm going to keep it pretty short and sweet, but the question is, can we get to 500 before All-Star break? Before any of this happened, before we really got into, getting Hachimura and AD coming back, I was not sure. I'm going to be honest. If we didn't have AD, if we didn't have Hachimura, if we didn't have a healthy, solid, strong, honestly, prime-looking LeBron, we would not be where we are. So couple of weeks ago, I would have told you I'm not sure. But now that we have AD back, we have Hachimura, and LeBron is putting up monster numbers, I think we have a great shot. So looking at these games, our first one up is against the Pelicans. Pelicans team was a team that looked great. I mean, they were a top 4 seed for a couple of weeks, and then due to injuries, they've dropped down to 10th. And the worst part is they're currently on a 10-game losing streak. So, and they don't have a chance to get a win before us. We're their next game, they're our next game. So they don't have a chance to have that buffer win to get back on track. So they're going to have no buffer win, no time to really prepare for us. They've been on a 10-game losing streak. Again, injuries and lack of depth is a big part, but still, I think this Lakers team is going to eat them up and win 115-98, which will give us that first win back. Again, currently we are sitting at 12th in the West at 25-28, so this would put us at 26-28. Our next game is against the Thunder. This is a team that kind of had a quick boost. They look like a team that is better than I think they are. They've got the stars, they've got the talent, but they kind of remind me of the Sacramento Kings of the last few years before this year when they just weren't quite there yet. There were a couple of pieces off, and they were developing their players that they drafted and brought in, and now they're that team that's a top four talent. So I don't see any reason this Thunder team won't be the same situation eventually, but they're not there yet. I think they'll stay around 13th, 12th, 11th the rest of the season. I don't think we'll see them in the playoffs. And I've got the Lakers beating them 120 to 103. Not a 20-point win, but still a pretty big blowout. And that would put us at 27 and 28. Look how close we would be to 500. I truly think this is right where we will be. And then we've got the Bucks Lakers. That is the game that could potentially break up that momentum and break up a 3-game win streak. The Bucks are a solid team, obviously. I mean, the Bucks are by far the best team in the East. I mean, yes, the Celtics are a great team, but I think the Bucks, pound for pound, because of who they have in Giannis, are the best team. So that Bucks team, essentially, we're playing the best team. And if not, if you don't look at them as the best, they're at least a top 3 in the East, and they're a super solid, dangerous team. So again, we already beat them once. I think I even said I didn't think we would, but I've got to give it to the Bucks because they're finally starting to look healthier and stronger, and they've been that team that has been top of the East even when they've not had all the depth and all the pieces. And now that all the pieces are starting to kind of come back in, I honestly think that this Bucks team is just going to get more dangerous. So I do have us dropping this game to the Bucks, 105 to 111. Super close game. Maybe we see a rematch in the finals, whether that be this year or within the next few years. Maybe that's a rematch we see. And I mean, if we're only losing 105 to 111 against the best team in the East, we're not doing too bad. So again, of course they're sitting second right now, but those games are so close. I mean, they're separated by such little that in my opinion they are the best. So I've got us dropping that one. So we would be 27 and 29, and then again we've got the Warriors next. Now here's the thing, the Warriors are a great team. They're a fantastic team. They look better. But I believe that the Lakers are a better team, pound for pound, especially when we look at the big man position. When we look at the 4 and 5 spot, we will absolutely bully them. If AD and Hachimura and Thomas Bryant are in, we are going to bully that Warriors team because they are weak at that position. And the players that they're supposed to have, that are supposed to be the ones at that position, are not showing up and are not showing out. So we are going to bully them just for that simple fact. Now, I do have it being a hard-fought game that goes into OT, but I've got the Lakers winning at 122 to 118 in a hard-fought game. The biggest key is locking Curry up, and I think that we have one of the best chances in the West of doing that for who we have in our guard positions. So I think we're going to have a great game. It's going to be, I mean, they're going to score, and it's going to be a shot-for-shot back-and-forth game, but I do have us winning 122 to 118. So then that puts us at 28 and 29. So there's 2 games left. Praise God. Praise the Lord that our final 2 games are against the Trailblazers and the Pelicans. Because if they were against, say, the Celtics or the Grizzlies or even the Sacramento Kings, I would say, oh my goodness, we might not make it to 500. But the Trailblazers, while they are a team that honestly is in a pretty similar spot than the Lakers are a better unit pound for pound with talent. This officially puts us at 30 and 29, and we would finally be over 500 and where we have needed to be for the longest time. The biggest thing the Lakers will need to do is build on this after All-Star break because you don't want to be right at 500 because even being right at 500, while that might get you into the play-in, it might not. I mean, teams like the Pelicans will start picking back up. Teams like the Trailblazers might also start picking back up. Even a team like the Thunder might have a second season win, so a second part of the season win. So we need to be on top of it. We need to be ready for that. We need to get above right at 500. 500 mid would be awesome. If we can get up to 500 mid, at least right above that 500 or even 509 mark, then we're good. We just need to get above that, and I think we will. So 30 and 29, I'm banking on it. We've got this. We can do this. It is our 30 and 29 to lose at this point. We've got to do this. This has to be what we need to do. If the Lakers really want a chance to have success, they need to do it. So that's a big thing for me, but moving right along to a player that we have not been able to really talk about for the longest time. If you have watched this show or you just know me, then you have heard these nicknames before. A. Disney, Glassman. I'm not calling him any of those things today, though. Anthony freaking Davis, AD, the Brow. is back, and he is back in the best way possible. He has been putting up absolute fantastic numbers since he came back. Started him back last week on the 25th against the Spurs. If you watched that last episode or listened to it, you know that I called them bringing him back more around that game against the Nets, but they did end up bringing him back against the Spurs. Again, that was the game to do it because it was the Spurs, but I didn't think they were going to bring him back like that. But they ended up bringing him back against the Spurs. He had 21 points, his first game back after an injury, after missing over a month, and he has a 4-piece of blocks. That was what impressed me the most. 4 blocks, 1 assist, and 12 boards. A double-double and a 4-piece. What better game could we ask for him to come back from? Because he is always a player that starts off cold. His engine is kind of slow to start, especially after injuries. That was not the case. You can tell he's been rehabbing, he's been working, and he is ready to come back because he came out guns blazing. Then we get that unfortunate game against the Celtics. I still get shivers. I'm going to need therapy. I need therapy for a lot of reasons, but this is just adds. I have a new reason to need therapy, and that would be the Celtics game. That was ridiculous. When the ref and his family are very clearly Celtics fans, and the ref's family takes pictures of themselves sporting their Celtics gear and their Celtics jerseys after that loss. Oh, I hated that. I would talk about that the whole episode if we got onto that. So we're not even talking about that because I'm trying to forget that. I'm going to need some time because that was ridiculous. But even in that ridiculous game, Anthony Davis had 16 points. He had 4 assists and he had 10 rebounds. Not as big defensively, and that may have made a difference in that game if he had a bigger defensive presence. Obviously, the Lakers should have won that game, and this time it's not because they blew it. But that being said, he wasn't as alive on the defensive side, but still a double-double, and he looked great. They sat him against the Nets. Him and LeBron both sat. The Lakers got their butts kicked by that team. I mean, it was not a good game, but then he came back against the Spurs and he had 27 points, 2 steals, 1 assist, and 9 rebounds. So a little bit more alive on the defensive side and absolutely an offensive booster that helped us win. And then that last game, of course, we already went into it, but I want to say it again because that was just a solid game. 31 points, 2 blocks, 1 steal, 2 assists, 14 rebounds. All around performance, looking exactly like he looked before he went off with the injury. That is a great sign. So the biggest question is, what does this mean for the Lakers? Well, a couple of things. One, Jeannie Buss went out and said straight up that Anthony Davis is this team. The team is supposed to be built around him. So it makes sense that we have struggled so much when we haven't had him because that is supposed to be our guy. That is our piece that puts us over the edge. The problem is most great teams that you see, even if they have a player that the team is built around, they have solid backups and solid depth built around that player if they go down with an injury, because injuries happen. Let's be honest. NBA injuries, especially this season, are rampant. So injuries happen. You have to almost mentally and physically and organizationally prepare yourself for injuries. The Lakers have never done that with Anthony Davis. Last season, we had DeAndre Jordan, a Dwight Howard who you wouldn't even let be Dwight Howard. We did not have depth at either of the big men positions last season. The season before, we had a little bit more depth. We had Gasol, we had Harrell, a little bit more depth. I like that a little bit more. And we had more success. We had more success with a little bit more depth that we had. But this season, the biggest key to Anthony Davis's success / the Lakers' success is Thomas Bryant and Rui Hachimura, because you are finally bringing in young guys. You're not trying to bring in vets. You're bringing young guys in who can build up that position. We've already seen Thomas Bryant build that position up. When AD was gone, he took over. We have seen him build up. I have no doubt in my mind that he is able to build up and build that position to where it needs to get, even if AD is out. And he did that. Hachimura obviously has been in since AD has been in, but if AD has an exit again, which let's hope, oh my gosh, let's hope to God that doesn't happen. If that happens again, Rui Hachimura and Thomas Bryant will hold down the fort. And I do believe that we could still add DeMarcus Cousins as well. It's not beyond the probability level of that happening. There's still a chance. I do believe we will add another big man before it's all said and done. But having depth around the position is what they need to have, because building that team around AD is great. But I mean, y'all knew when you got him that he is made of glass. He had injury problems in New Orleans. It's not like that just happened with the Lakers. He's always had problems with injuries and staying, sustainable and keeping healthy
long enough for it to really matter. So that's been a problem for Anthony Davis the whole time. What people don't talk about is that's kind of the problem with the Pelicans is they would be successful and then he would go out and then they would have no one. And that's how it's looked. The Lakers have mirrored that these last 2 seasons. Now they have LeBron, they don't have no one, but still for what the team is trying to be built as, when Anthony Davis is out, they have a really low chance of winning. So it makes sense. It's unfortunate because we are a great team who should not be blowing games even with our great player out. But before we had Hachimura and before Thomas Bryant really took off, we didn't have depth at that position. So it wasn't so much we were in a different spot. We're in a different spot now with who we have. And again, I still think we're going to get DeMarcus Cousins, or at least we're going to get another big man to build on. But I truly, I mean, this Lakers team looks a lot better. And it's no secret that they've looked a lot better since AD has been back. He is that defining piece. I will say it looks like he's doing less moves that have gotten him injured. He's taking less risky shots. He's doing less, full on contact shots that we've seen him fall and whatever before. I mean, the guy will just, if the absolute longevity of a highlight reel of Anthony Davis getting himself injured. I don't want to see that, but it would be long. That would be, I mean, I could make a YouTube video of Anthony Davis's injuries and it would probably almost match his other highlights because he's been injured so many times and there's been so much injury. And the thing that he needs to do is learn from that. Again, I'm saying this as a fan in freaking Hawaii who has never played college ball, pro ball, any of that. I'm not trying to say that I know exactly what I'm talking about with that. But what I do want to say is as a coach of a sport that is not basketball, but as a coach of a sport and just someone who's sports minded, you need to eliminate what is injuring you. And while he has also just potentially been born made of glass because some people are, another thing that I've noticed is certain shot selections and certain moves that he will do have a higher probability of him getting injured off of. And in his first 4 games back, I have not seen him do as many of those moves. I think that he is actively trying to keep himself from getting injured again, because if he goes down again, second half of the season with something big that puts him out for a month or two, we could be looking at our season. So what does it mean to have him back? It means that we have a chance. It means we have a shot. It means that we have a real shot at making a playoff push, because we could make the playoffs without him. I want to make it clear right now that I'm not saying I don't think we can make the playoffs without him. I just don't think we can make a playoff push with it. We need him to make a playoff push. Could we make the playoffs with just Braun and who we have now and maybe a couple other pieces we're going to bring in? Yeah, of course. But we need Anthony Davis come playoff time. And in order to have him ready for the playoffs, he has to play during the regular season. He is not going to be injured again and then come out and have a monster playoff performance. He needs to build that up and build up his endurance and build everything up in these next few months leading up to the playoffs, while also stringing together the wins we desperately need. So what does it mean? It means hope. It means moving forward, but it also means a lot of unknown. So every single time he gets the ball, does one of his moves, Lakers fans will hold their breath. But the hope is that he can build on his health and be healthy enough to get us through the rest of this season. So welcome back, AD. Good Lord. I mean, I'm expecting monster performances, especially that next game against the Pels. If he's in, which he right now it looks like he will be, watch out. I'm calling it. He's going to have a 40 piece with 15 rebounds on the side and 3 blocks for dessert. I'm saying it right. So I'm gonna be honest, a lot of our topics and segments so far, there's been a lot of negativity with throughout episodes just because there's been a lot of negative moments throughout this season. I'm not trying to be overly negative. I mean, I am a pretty critical fan, but I also, it's just been really negative. There's been a lot of negatives. It's been hard to be super positive each episode. But this episode, I will say, is one of our most positive ones we've had because we talked about AD coming back, and that's awesome. And now we are going to be talking about something that is potentially viewed as more important and more awesome because history is about to be made before we do another episode of Purple and Gold Zone. History will be made, and yes, it will be made in the purple and gold. Let me get into what we're talking about next.
There's no secret. LeBron James is history is within the reach. History is within the next 7 days because he is within 7 days, within even 5 days of passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the all-time scoring list. Now, first of all, what people don't realize is the scoring record was not 33 plus when Kareem broke it. When it was first broken on April 5th, 1984, Kareem broke the record that was held by Wilt Chamberlain, and that record was 31,419 points. That was the record before Kareem broke it. And then after that, of course, we know what happened after that. Kareem added a lot more points to that and made it what looked like untouchable. The reason it looked like it was untouchable is because what happened was Kareem continued playing after he broke that. That was not the end of his career when he broke it. He was in the midst of winning more championships. He was in the midst of having more success. He was on the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, this was not the end for Kareem, which is the same as LeBron. No matter where he goes next, he is not going to finish 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to even 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 points in front of Kareem. He is going to finish with 40,000. I said it right then and right there. I mean, there is no way LeBron James is not going to finish with 40,000 points before he retires. He is going to have 40,000 points and will stand alone, because I don't think we'll see another player that gets to 40,000 points. I do not think we will ever see that again. I'm sorry. I don't. And I think that's what he's going to get. Now, first, of course, he just has to break Kareem's record. But again, people are predicting that that will happen by that Thunder game. People think he will get it at the Thunder game. And, hey, enough people must be thinking that, because I was originally going to try to go to that game before I even knew it was going to be the one where he was going to break the record. And when I looked like a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, tickets were so cheap. And now, I mean, even the 334 section tickets are $300 to $400. And just for everybody who doesn't know ticket prices, usually those are, even at crypto.com, those are only going for 100 to 120 at the most. The fact that the nosebleeds are $400, $500, there's a really high probability. I mean, there is almost a 100% chance that LeBron James is going to break this record at that game. And if not, imagine breaking it against the Bucks, the team where Kareem started. So he's going to break it for sure. I have him breaking it against the Thunder. Most people have him breaking it against the Thunder. And it's big. I mean, the fact that the top two scorers in history are in purple and gold is big. And if LeBron, for some reason, some luck of the draw, ends up retiring as a Laker, then it will mean a lot more. I will say this, it will mean a lot more to me if he retires as a Laker, because then he finished his career, he got that record, and he continued to make it unbreakable as a Los Angeles Laker. That'll be cool to me. To me, that'll be awesome. Even if he breaks it, leaves the Lakers, whatever. But if he breaks it and stays a Laker, then the top two scorers in history are Los Angeles Lakers, and I don't see that changing ever. I'm gonna be honest. I don't see anyone catching up. Definitely not to LeBron once he breaks it. But Kareem, even that 38, I don't see anyone getting there. I just don't think careers are gonna last long enough to get to there. So I mean, if you're Luka, you definitely. He already said he's definitely not trying to play that long. The players that could break it are the ones that I don't think will play that long. So that's the thing that I have to say about that right then and there. But either way, I mean, it's huge. LeBron is donning it, and he absolutely is going to break it. And it's going to be a special moment. It's going to be an emotional moment, and it's going to mean a lot. Now, it's not going to mean so much that it's going to excuse if we don't make the playoffs, but it's going to mean a lot in the sense that literally LeBron James is the scoring leader now, and no one ever thought that was going to happen. No one thought that was ever going to happen. And that's not because it's anything personal against LeBron. It's just no one thought anyone was going to break that record, and now it's looking like LeBron's going to be the one to do exactly that. So it's super cool. It's a big deal. If LeBron remains a Laker beyond this season, and if he retires as a Laker, I think it means more. I think it means a lot more. It still means something now, but if he can build on and add on to that scoring record as a Laker and continue that success and build on and really redefine what the success is going to be for the Lakers, then I think it's going to mean a lot more. So it means a lot, but again, it's also not like he has scored all of those points in the purple and gold. But a question that a viewer asked me, that is one of the reasons we're doing this segment, is how many points has LeBron scored as a Laker? Has his impact been scoring wise as a Laker, and what has being a Laker impacted his scoring? Has there been a decrease, an increase? How many points has he scored? So we're gonna look at how many points LeBron James has scored as a Laker and just how big of an impact it has had on the Lakers, and how many points have been added to make that 30. So looking at LeBron James as a Laker, he has scored 7,287 points within his 4.5 seasons as a Laker. Obviously, he is still in the midst of this 2022-23 season. So the points per season that he has scored so far will only go up. But looking at his time as a Laker, his first season, he scored 1,505 points in 55 games. Again, even his first season as a Laker, we saw a couple of injuries and we saw him kind of in and out of the lineup at certain points. So that would have been the meaning and the reason for the decreased games. And then when we look at their championship year, this was his all-time high as a Laker. 67 games, he had 1,698 points. Super, super solid. His closest performance to 2000 as a Laker so far, and a really solid season. Obviously, we know how that ended. And then another season, 45 games played, he had 1,126 points. Another season plagued with injuries. He has almost played. This is how bad that was. LeBron has almost played more games this season than he played in that 2020-2021 season, and he still put up 1,126 points. To me, that's just, playing injured, not having the most complete lineups, he still put up big numbers. And then obviously last season, he had a pretty big season, almost matching his 19-20 season. He had 1,695 points in 56 games. Of course, those were pretty much empty stat lines because they weren't winning a lot of those games. Even the games he was putting big numbers in, it wasn't a lock that they would win. They were such a bad, unorganized team that only heightened the chances that they might have a chance. So it wasn't great, but he still had a big season. And then so far this season, in 42 games, he's scored 1,263 points. It is truly looking like he could have a season where he has his best or second best scoring season as a Laker. If he stays healthy and plays most of the remainder of the games, I do think we could definitely see LeBron up in that 600 plus spot where he has been. It's all about his health. That's been the biggest thing for him as a Laker. The reason he doesn't have more points is because he's had a lot of injuries. I would say he's had the most injuries he's ever had on this team. Now again, the Cavs, he's played longer, so he probably had more injuries overall, but not injuries that kept him out like these ones have. These injuries have kept him out. He would probably already have that scoring record had he not missed so many games, even just his first season as a Laker. So again, it's big, it's awesome. He's put up great numbers. 7,287 points, especially where he has been at in his career age-wise, is massive. I do want to look at his time on the Heat though really quick and see how much it differs. In only 4 seasons, he had 7,919 points on the Heat. Now, this is what I'll say. Obviously, you can see all but one season he was putting 2,000 plus points up. He has not done that as a Laker. He has not done that since a Cav, and he should not do that anymore. He should not have to have 2,000 plus point seasons. Now, I will say these were 2,000 plus point seasons on really well-rounded, well-made teams, but even then, now if he was putting up that much and having that many minutes to eclipse those minutes, that would just be a lot. To get to those points with the amount of minutes he would need would be too much. And we've seen him on his higher end minute seasons for the Lakers and how big of a toll that has taken on him. So yeah, he scored more as on the Heat in less time, but he was definitely more of that leading force on that team. He's still a leading force for the Lakers, but it's definitely not quite the same. I mean, this was prime LeBron, which sounds crazy to say because it feels like LeBron's been prime LeBron for years now, but this was truly prime LeBron physically, mentally, and everything. I mean, this was his villain arc. This was big. He was never going to match what he did on this Heat team with those points because he just was on a tear when he was in Miami. So again, even with that, we are not looking at much of a difference points-wise. He has still put up a solid amount of points, putting on over 15, 16,000 of your all-time points with the two teams that aren't the Cavs, because the Cavs are he put up 23,000 points with them. There's never going to be a team that matches the Cavs because of how long he played for them. But I do think if he remains a Laker, he will stay at that 1,000 plus mark until he retires. I don't see that dropping. I see him being a scorer until he's done. I see him at least being able to put up 1,000 points. I want to say almost easily a season. So that is crazy. The thought of him still putting up these performances and not being done yet is crazy, but that's where we're at. So again, Heat LeBron was great, but Lakers LeBron I truly think will have more longevity and could potentially put up even more points in the purple and gold.
That brings us to our final topic of the day, which actually came out as we were recording this episode. This was not a topic that I was planning on talking about before this episode, but in the midst of recording, like it seems to happen, which is, I'm not complaining. We're live. We're ready. We're out here ready to go with Lakers news whenever, wherever. Let's go. I'm here for it. But it took me by surprise because a certain player who has been rumored to be a Laker too many times at this point is rumored to be one again, potentially. I'll let you guys guess who it is. I'll let you guys know it's not Kawhi Leonard. We're never going to get Kawhi. We blew it. Jeannie, you blew it. No, I'm just kidding. But no, we'll never get. No, it's not Kawhi. It's not Kawhi. It's not Paul George. Ron, Ron Olay team. If you're a fan of them, you're dead to me. Just kidding. But seriously though, it's not those guys. Those are two rumored guys. It's not DeMarcus Cousins, even though we should have him. No. The player I'm talking about is Mr. Kyrie Irving, who, again, the Nets have been rolling lately. The Nets have been on a roll in the East, and they're finally looking like an Eastern team that is a real competitor and a real force to be reckoned with in the East. I mean, and that's been without KD. Kevin Durant has been out battling an injury, and they're fourth in the East. And a big part of that is because of Kyrie Irving and what he has been doing for the team. Obviously, he had all the drama and everything going on surrounding whatever controversy it was that time. It's almost like, oh, what controversy is it this time? There's so many controversies that seem to take place with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, but mainly just Kyrie Irving. Outside of basketball, Kyrie Irving. Inside of basketball, there's a lot of stuff even with Kevin Durant. But I mean, it looked great. Kyrie was having a great season, arguably an all-time season. 27.1 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists per game. His career average is 23.3 points per game and 3.9 rebounds per game, and he is bettering both of that. He looks great. He looks fantastic. Over their last game against the Lakers, when he went head-to-head against the Lakers on the 30th of January, he had 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Kyrie Irving is an all-around point guard. I don't care what anyone says. Skill-wise, Kyrie Irving is an all-around point guard. He can get it all done. No one really looks at his rebounding skill or what he does outside of just his impressive handles and his scoring. But skill-wise, he is one of the most talented guards the league has ever seen and one of the most complete guards the league has ever seen. He's been balling for the Nets. Arguably, he has been a big reason that they have been winning. Now, the real question that I want to answer right off the bat is, why is he requesting a trade? Well, it's not because they're not successful. It is because he knows that they are not going to renew his contract. They're not going to give him an extension. They're not going to offer him anything else after the season. What he really wants is a home that is going, well, a home. He wants the money. Show him the money. Of course, I would show him the money. It's Kyrie Irving, no matter what has happened. It's Kyrie Irving. So a team is going to show him the money. A team is going to make that trade happen. But the question is, should it be the Lakers? There was a poll on one of the Lakers sites I'm on. Within 5 minutes of this being announced, 2,000 people, there was a poll on there. 2,000 people voted yes, that they wanted. Within the first, literally 5 minutes of this breaking, 2,000 people said, we want Kyrie. Do you want to know how many people said no? I can count them on my hand. 10 people said no within those 5 minutes, and the other ones all said yes. They all co-signed on it. So the question is, does that make sense? Who would we lose? What would that trade look like if we got Kyrie Irving somehow? Would it be worth it? Would it be possible? So, obviously, this would require the Lakers to trade some of their assets. And the biggest thing, the Nets will definitely want at least one of the Lakers' first-round picks in 2027 and 2029. Maybe both of them. Maybe the Nets would demand both of them. Maybe they would really look at the Lakers' future and demand that they get both of those picks. And now, would they hesitate to do that? Would that be something they would hesitate to do? Now, what would also be in there would absolutely be Russell Westbrook. That would be included in the package as well. What I can see happening off the top of my head, and what is rumored, is a couple of first-round picks and then Russell Westbrook. Now, here's the thing. At the beginning of the season, fans were demanding that we get rid of Russell Westbrook. They were demanding that we don't need him. He's hurting us. He's not helping us in the slightest. He's bringing us down. Well, frankly, that is not the case. He is averaging 15.7 points per game, 6.3 rebounds, 7.6 assists, 1 steal, and 0.4 blocks off the bench.
He has been putting up monster numbers off the bench. He has been having himself a sixth man of the year type of performance throughout the season. Night after night, you can guarantee that he will at least put up 10 points and probably get pretty close to 10 assists or 10 rebounds. He is a stat machine, and that has benefited the Lakers so much, especially in the, when some of those players were absent, that really, really helped that team stay afloat. So Russell Westbrook has been nothing but good. And that's the whole reason that the Nets would absolutely expect to have him as well included in the trade package. Now, here's my thing. When we think about the future with those first round picks, I am more looking at this as opposed to not wanting to get rid of those as opposed to Russell Westbrook. I like Russell Westbrook a lot. I think he is a great fit for the Lakers. But if he can help us bring a piece in that would help us win a championship, I would pick that over keeping him. I don't think Russell Westbrook is 100% a player that would ever win a championship with the Lakers. I think there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance they have a resurgence and he'd be a great part of that. But I almost think if you bring Kyrie Irving in, you're not guaranteeing yourself a championship, but you're pretty darn close. The biggest thing is he's not leaving the Nets for some ridiculous reason, some controversy. There's no controversy there. He wants to get paid. He wants to have a consistent home, and he knows the Nets aren't going to give him that. The Los Angeles Lakers, though, on the other hand, very well could. And I think that they very well would. Because Kyrie Irving, if there's no beef, which I don't even know if there was really ever any beef. It doesn't seem like there was actual beef between LeBron and Kyrie. There was just kind of a power struggle. There was an off part of their dynamic due to who LeBron was and who Kyrie Irving also was. It was just there was a little bit of a power dynamic problem, or just there was a disconnect. But they've grown. Especially Kyrie has seemed to have grown at least a little bit and carry himself a little bit better maybe. And again, I can understand where he's coming from. It's not like I'm going to sit here and say, oh, it's all his fault. Like, I can't believe he felt this way. Like, I get it. You don't want to be the little, like, he wanted to lead a team. He wanted to win his own championship without LeBron. That was very much the case. Someone literally called LeBron his father figure. I would not want that either. So I get why he maybe wasn't wanting to stand in Cleveland with LeBron and also just wanted to leave Cleveland as a whole. It was the writing was on the wall after that season. So I get it. I think that the stars could align. I don't think it's a situation where it's like LeBron and him are so like they won't work. They won't be able to make it. Like, they will make it work. We have seen players who don't care for each other outside of the sport of basketball still win championships. A perfect example is a former purple and gold duo with Shaq and Kobe. It's a little bit different, obviously, different reasons, different situation, but I truly think LeBron and Kyrie could and would make it work, and I think that getting Kyrie for the rest of it, whoever gets Kyrie for the remainder of the season is signing him longer in the offseason. It's not like they're just going to plug and play. That's not going to happen. Whoever gets him next wants to commit and guarantee that he has a home for at least a couple of years. So whoever it is, I've heard the Suns, I've heard Utah, I've heard the Mavs. I've heard a lot of different things, but I do think that the Lakers might have one of the highest probabilities, especially since AD is back. I really can see Kyrie Irving being interested, and I can see the Nets being interested. So, like I was saying, I don't have a problem with Russell Westbrook, putting him in a trade. He's going off on a good note. He kind of resurrected himself as a Laker and put up some big performances, and I think the fans really embraced him. So if it means that we have to get rid of him and move him, that's fine. But the first round picks are what bother me, because it's like, we're not guaranteed LeBron's going to be around forever. I mean, obviously he isn't. We're not guaranteed AD is. I see him going to the Bulls eventually. I don't think AD is going to finish his career as a Laker. So depending on whether that's traded or if he free agency, I don't think it's a lock that who we have now is going to be around. So giving up on future talent worries me just a little bit. But in the same breath, if we have Kyrie Irving on the team and we sign him to a multi-year deal, then I can almost guarantee you, unless we decide that we want to end up trading LeBron or AD, which will not happen if all goes well, then we would have a team that could make a push for the next 5 years. If we get Kyrie Irving, we sign him to a 3-year deal or something along those lines, we have probably guaranteed KD, good Lord, KD, yeah, bring him too. No, AD and LeBron are probably also going to be locked in for a similar amount of time. So in that retrospect, it makes sense, because maybe you can secure your superstars you have now, build up those younger players, and get Kyrie Irving in. I mean, I think there's a really big possibility. So at the end of the day, I think if possible, we should trade for him. Do I think it's 100% a lock? No. Do I think we could get other players that aren't Kyrie Irving that could still help us a lot before the deadline that's on the 9th? Yeah, of course. I mean, the deadline is coming up. The deadline is coming up, and to be honest with you, Kyrie Irving is not the only situation with the Lakers. There's also been a deal talked about between Russell Westbrook and the Jazz. There was a potential trade there that has been heavily talked about. I think that one is less likely to happen, but there is a really big chance that we would get Malik Beasley, and that would be huge. I mean, Beasley is a 6'4" shooting guard. That's 36% from the three, and he would check a lot of boxes in what we need for targets. I mean, his career percentage from deep is 38.1. We need 3-point shooters. So I really like the idea of getting him. I really, really like the concept of potentially getting, Malik Beasley. And then there's also a potential for some other things thrown in as well. Maybe we get a couple of picks. Maybe we get, there's some things we could get that could secure the future as well in that respect. So there's also a situation with the Jazz that is very much alive. So there's a lot of different situations that are going, on right now. Another thing is, what about Conley? That's intriguing. His 22 million salary would take up. Well, guys, that brings us to an end of another successful episode. Thank you guys so much. But before I go, well, first of all, two things. One, check back next week for the All-Star episode. It's going to be very All-Star heavy. A lot of focus is on that, or any other trade moves or anything that's gone on will be in the next episode. But the biggest focus will be All-Star. Before I go, I want to plug my other stuff. You can find me on a couple other things. Well Beyond the Arc is an NBA show I have with my co-host Manoli. It is on the Yankee and the Brit Sports YouTube channel. Yankee and the Brit YouTube channel is great. It actually has more than just sports. There's documentaries, there's interviews, there's so many great things. Be sure to check out the Yankee and the Brit YouTube channel. Hit it with a subscription and check out Jay's newest documentary, which will be coming out. I believe it was like February 10th. I'm not sure. It's coming out soon. Check it out. If you're into anything with gangs or mafia families, check it out. You're gonna love it. It was great. So there's one out on John Gotti that was incredible. So make sure you check those out on the Yankee and the Brit Sports page. And then my co-host Manoli for Well Beyond the Arc has his own blog called the Sports Page Blog. Check it out. So many great articles spanning all sports. You're gonna love it. You're gonna get lost in all the different articles that you can read. And then finally, my other show is the Connor and Heffernan Show. We are kind of a weekend show. We're a complete sports show. We talk MLB, NHL, NBA, all stuff. You can find us on the same channel as you found this episode, or you can find us on Spotify at the Connor and Heffernan Show as well. And we are doing an episode this weekend covering a little bit of everything, a little bit of NFL talk, a lot of news, Tom Brady retiring, a couple other things going on. But for the most part, we're going to dive into a lot of things this next episode. So check out the Connor and Heffernan Show. And until next time, go Lakers. See you guys.